Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Camilla Connor, and I am a research assistant for the Dana Foundation Career Network in Neuroscience and Society. I'm excited to host this conversation with Dr. Firat, a PhD trained sociologist, bringing together neuroscience, sociology, and society leadership in a distinctive way. Today's conversation will focus on Dr. Firat's background and her work at the intersection of neuroscience, sociology, and society. Dr. Firat, thank you for joining us. To start, could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story? What is your background and where are you now?
Thank you. Thank you, Camila. Thank you for having me. It's my honor to be here. It's a great pleasure. I'm Dr. Rengin Firat. I am currently a professor of leadership and change at Antioch University. I'm also the interim co-chair for our PhD program in leadership and change. I'm a neurosociologist, so that's why you have me here. You might be wondering, some of you might be wondering, what is neurosociology? So, neurosociology is a subfield of sociology that bridges neurosciences with sociology. So, it is rooted in the sociological discipline. My interest started in neurosociology in graduate school. I went to grad school at the University of Iowa. So I got my PhD in sociology, but I also got training in neurosciences and neuropsychology at the neuroscience graduate program at the University of Iowa. And a lot of my research combines functional brain imaging, functional magnetic resonance imaging with sociological methods like survey methods and theories. I'm a quantitative sociologist. So I bridge a lot of my work bridges sociological and neuroscientific theories and research methods. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey. So I moved to the US to get my PhD. I went to school at the University of Iowa. Then I did a postdoc in France at the University of Lyon in Culture and Cognition Lab. And after that, I held tenure track positions at Georgia State and University of California, Riverside. So a lot of my career trajectory had been very interdisciplinary. So I worked in labs and departments that had been primarily interdisciplinary. And a lot of my research and the whole premise of neurosociology is this interdisciplinarity and bridging different fields.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that introduction of neurosociology and yourself. Was there a specific moment throughout your career trajectory that led you to combine sociology and neuroscience?
Yes, absolutely. There was. So I got my bachelor's in Istanbul, Turkey. So in Istanbul and a lot of European countries, that part of the world, sociology comes from a very critical theory lens. So it's more about like reading critical theory, critical studies. So when I moved to the US to do my PhD, I thought that I was going to be a critical theorist. And I was very interested in qualitative methods. I was interested in social justice. But I started taking, of course, my graduate courses, and I took a course on the sociology of morality with my PhD advisor, Dr. Stephen Hedlund. And he assigned us in that course some articles from neurosciences and psychology on how the human brain processes morality. And I was very impressed because this research, it was the first time ever in my life I was exposed to anything coming from biomedical fields. Like I said, I was more trained in like theory and critical scholarship. It was the first time ever I was seeing this biomedical fields and how they were focusing on very sociological phenomena, like social phenomena, like moral values, moral emotions. What really impressed me was that I realized that that research actually was very groundbreaking. It shattered psychology because it found that unlike the traditional psychological theories, like think about like Immanuel Kant, like Jean Piaget, that focus on morality as something rational, logical, that you would come through development and like growing older, like humans would come to this rational morality. Brain sciences showed that it was our emotional parts of brains that were actually driving morality. Our moral intuitions were actually driving our moral judgments. And that fascinated me when I was exposed to this. And I was early grad school. I was, I think, still doing my master's thesis. I might have been like first or second year master's student. So I was very impressed. I was like mind blown. I was like, whoa, this is just fascinating that how looking at the brain can influence our sociological theories. social theories and the social foundations of knowledge on very big abstract theories of morality. And then I started, after that, I was like super curious. I was like, I told my advisor, hey, I want to learn more about the brain. Like this is so fascinating. And he's a great, very open-minded person, but he was like, okay, you're a sociologist. Like, how are we going to do that? Because in a lot of sociology departments, there is no training on the biological underpinnings of social behavior. So I went to the head of the neuroscience graduate program at the Iowa at the hospital, and I told him I really want to learn this. I'm fascinated. I'm very passionate about it. So I started taking courses. So I took medical neuroanatomy. I took functional MRI, like functional brain imaging. I took neuropsychology. So I took a bunch of courses and I did a lot of their training. So I was going to the lab like 3 times a week. I was in the neurology clinic at like 7:30 a.m. because I was fascinated. So that became part of my graduate training. And over the course of like the next 3 to 4 years, I incorporated neurosciences into sociology. And my dissertation is on sociology of discrimination, race and racism and discrimination. So I was able to conduct an interdisciplinary study that bridged functional brain imaging with survey methods and combining neuroscience and sociology theories. So that was how it evolved. But the starting point was my graduate course on the sociology of morality.
Wow, that's amazing that you were able to combine all of that in your graduate studies. So I guess you kind of answered this question, but how do the integrations of sociology and neuroscience complement each other, and why is this so important?
Yeah, so it is very important. Throughout my career, I observe two big pitfalls, right? These two big pitfalls in my conversations with students or other academics. The first one is that whenever I engage in psychological research, any social psychological research from what I read or what I converse with colleagues, a lot of the time, psychology or neuropsychology focuses on cognitive and emotional and behavioral processes of social phenomena without thinking about institutions, social structures, and historical legacies, right? Cultures and historical legacies, like how did things come to be, happen to me? And oftentimes they're taken as granted. So this is one big pitfall. And the second pitfall comes more from sociology because a lot of sociologists are also still a little resistant to integrate biological sciences. And this pitfall is a misunderstanding that whenever we focus on a biological or neurological or physiological underpinning of a social behavior, they think that it must be biologically determined, right? Whenever they think that, well, if you're looking at the brain processes of racism, then you are thinking that it's genetic, it's biological. Whereas it's not like that. Our brains don't work like that. So that is why it is so important to bridge sociology with neurosciences. And in my entire career, that's what I'm trying to demonstrate is that our brains and our biologies are very social, right? Everything we say and everything we do also has a biological underpinning, which does not mean that it is biologically determined. It does not mean that we are born with it, but we are very social species. We learn, we adapt very fast, which means that our brains are very malleable. They're very plastic. So that's why it's very important to integrate neurosciences and neuropsychology with sociology so we can understand how these broader mechanisms of social structures, structural inequalities get quote unquote under the skin, right? So that is the premise. That's why they complement each other very well, and it gives us a full picture, like the big picture of how our bodies and brains work.
Thank you. That was amazing. Can you share a current project or initiative that you're currently working on that focuses on this intersection?
Absolutely. So when the COVID pandemic first started in 2020, we started a survey project with my colleague, Dr. Bruce Ling at University of California, Riverside. We were interested in the ethnic and racial processes, as particularly ethnic and racial inequalities of mental health that were caused by the COVID pandemic. Because it with this the COVID disease not only affected our us physical health but also mental health. Like the rates of anxiety and depression escalated so much. So we collected the survey data, and I was very interested in the mechanisms that might be buffering these negative effects. So I was interested in stress mechanisms and resilience mechanisms. One thing we discovered with this research is that certain ethnic and racial groups, particularly Black respondents in our sample, showed a lot of resilience. And we coined this as existential resistance or existential resilience, where they demonstrated this increased um, purpose, dignity, and social connection and meaning with other people that's buffered, that protected them from the negative consequences of the COVID pandemic on mental health outcomes, anxiety and depression. So I also explained this in my recent book. I just had a book that came out, The Racialized Brain. So I talk about these mechanisms a little bit in the book. But as a next step, I want to build on this because I'm also interested in this from a global point of view. Because ethnic identity and racial identities are culturally and socially constructed in multiple contexts. So I want to look at it from a global perspective, where I want to bridge comparative survey data with brain data to understand how these mechanisms work globally, especially in the face of political marginalization and oppression and other threats. It could be health threats or other social threats and conflicts. How do people show resilience? How do they resist? There's this, how do they make this existential meaning to support each other and resist these threats globally? And what are the cultural nuances and structural nuances, like structural inequalities? How do they affect things globally? And what does it mean within the context of ethnicity and race, ethnic identities and racial identities? So this is a project that I'm just starting. So it's very early phase right now. It's very preliminary, but I plan to look at data. There are a lot of publicly available data sets, global data sets like world values surveys. So I plan on investigating these data sets. And there are also a lot of now open access neuroscience data sets. So I want to be able to combine cross-cultural data from these open access data sets and bridge them together to analyze. It's going to be a longer term project because it takes a lot of time to analyze the data, but this is my earlier thinking on this. So I want to move on to these mechanisms where people show resistance, communities show resistance globally. So this is my, I guess, one of my next projects.
I'm very excited to see where that goes, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
So, my final question is for someone who might be interested in this career path, what advice would you give to them?
So there is, I could give a lot of advice. One of the first things I'm going to say is that get used to being uncomfortable. So it's very important to be uncomfortable in the sense that you it is okay to find yourself in strange and quote unquote foreign places, different places, because interdisciplinarity requires that you're able to get into different fields and learn their languages. It is almost like learning multiple languages. So it is okay to feel uncomfortable in different contexts. I really advise you to learn multiple methods, different methods from different disciplines and different theories. So keep an open mind and bridge these different methods and theories like quantitative, qualitative, different neuroscience tools, sociological tools, survey methods, interview methods, and different theories. Working in an interdisciplinary field like neurosociology, majority of it is translation. So it is interdisciplinary translation. So oftentimes you might be giving talks or you might be talking to colleagues from different disciplines like sociologists, neuroscientists, psychologists, which require adapting and changing the language. So I find that whenever I talk to a sociologist, I explain things a little differently then I would be talking to a neuroscientist. And it takes time to do that. It takes some learning, and that's okay. And that's why it's okay to feel uncomfortable sometimes, because sometimes you might be like, oh, I don't know, I'm saying things, I don't know if I'm saying it the right way. That feeling is okay and normal, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and it's part of it. It's very different than being embedded in a single discipline and studying the same thing and also having conversations with other people who are embedded in that discipline, because then everybody speaks the same language. But interdisciplinarity and neurosociology requires all these translation and conversations. Avoid disciplinary silos. It's very important to be able to to get in and out of different programs and different dialogues. So I would encourage students to find maybe interdisciplinary programs, or finding an advisor, even if the advisor is not interdisciplinary themselves, finding an advisor that keeps an open mind, finding a mentor that encourages and supports interdisciplinarity is very important. In graduate education, your support systems are very important, like having support from your peers, and also from your faculty mentors, especially your advisors, is very important. So being cultivating that support system. And you can do this within your program. You can also do this by going to different conferences. You could pick different academic conferences. American Sociological Association. If you come from a sociology background, American Sociological Association has a sub section called Biology and Society, for example. So I think each big organization has these subsections. So I would encourage graduate students, especially sociology students, if they're interested in neurosciences and biology, to sign up to that section, attend their events, and meet with people. So this just, joining different communities and getting to know people and being okay with feeling a little uncomfortable is would be my advice to students.
That's great advice. Dr. Firat, thank you so much for your insights and experiences. Your work really shows how neuroscience can influence and be influenced by sociological theory. For those watching, we hope this conversation inspires you to think about the integrations of neuroscience in your own work. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more interviews like this.